Before I get into this video, I highly recommend that you watch another video so you have some basis for this one. Up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there's going to be an eye that should pop up about right now. That is a link to a previous video I did on freehold and non-freehold estates where I explain both of them. In fact, the reason I'm doing this one specifically on non-freehold is in that previous video, I didn't feel like I explained the concept well enough for you to have the information that you need for the real estate licensing exam. So I decided to do a supplemental video here. All right, if you watched the video already, you know that a freehold estate means ownership. A non-freehold estate means non-ownership. In a freehold estate, we had three concepts or three key terms. We had fee simple absolute, meaning the owner had absolute ownership to the bundle of rights. We had the fee simple defeasible, where the person owned it, but there was a restriction that prevented absolute fee simple ownership. And then we had the life estate, where there was ownership, but again, the life tenant had a lot of restrictions. The non-freehold estate means non-ownership and legal interest. So non-ownership, very important to remember that. But even though there's non-ownership, the individual does have a legal interest in the property. And the most common is the landlord-tenant relationship. When a lease is signed between the landlord and the tenant, that landlord-tenant relationship or that non-freehold estate has been created. And we have to call it something because both sides have interest. Because remember, the landlord has, before the lease agreement was signed, the landlord has the legal right of ownership and the legal right of possession. So when the lease is signed, the landlord is transferring to the tenant the legal right of possession, but maintains the legal right of ownership. So therefore, they both have a legal interest in the property. Very important that you know. The landlord's legal interest is called a leased fee interest. And the tenant's legal interest in the property is known as a leasehold interest. The way I used to remember this when I sat where you are is the tenant or the landlord charges a fee called rent. And the tenant, if they don't pay that fee called rent, then they hold the property hostage until the eviction happens. So we call the legal interest that the landlord and the tenant have in a non-freehold estate. The landlord has leased fee interest and the tenant has leasehold interest. Now, we now have to define the quality of this estate or the quality of the legal interest. And I'm sure you've already heard this before, but now we're just going to use the legal terms. So there are four potential qualities in a non-freehold estate. So we already know they have a legal interest, and this is what they call them. But this represents the quality of that legal interest. The first one is what we call tenancy for years. And tenancy for years means, for example, on an apartment lease, that is a 1-year lease. It could be a 6-month lease. It could be a 2-year lease. In commercial, it could be a 5-year lease. The key with tenancy for years means there is a fixed expiration date. All right, it has a fixed defined expiration date. It doesn't have to technically be for a full year. It could be for a 3-month period, a 6-month period. The key is tenancy for years means there's a fixed expiration. This lease ends on March 31st, 2020. Periodic tenancy means it's month to month. Most of you have heard of a month-to-month lease agreement. That's the quality of this legal interest. Tenancy at will simply means that at any time, the landlord or the tenant can give notice and they immediately have to get out. In fact, with the periodic tenancy, as you know, where it's month to month, usually some type of notice to vacate it has to be given by the landlord or the tenant. Typically, it's 30 days in most states. Tenancy for will, though, just means I could give notice right now. Either the landlord or the tenant could give notice and they have to leave immediately. Quite honestly, most hotels run on a tenancy at will because you can pay and you're there for 24 hours or whatever checkout time is. But if you throw a loud party, they can come up and throw you out at any time, and you're not entitled to a refund because it's a tenancy at will relationship. That is the quality of the estate. And then the last one is tenancy at sufferance. Now, the key root word here is sufferance. This is where the tenant is in the property, still has the legal right of possession, hasn't been paying the rent, and the eviction hasn't happened yet. So the landlord has no money coming in and a holdover tenant. That is called tenancy at sufferance. So again, just to recap it, non-freehold estate means non-ownership legal interest. The tenant has what's called a leasehold interest, and the landlord has what's called a leased fee interest. And then these four items, that's the quality of the estate, or the quality of the legal interest in that landlord-tenant relationship.